should have been a cowboy. I should have learned to rope and ride.
Filipe, good to see you, bro.
Good to see you, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing good. You look good.
You look good, buddy.
Thank
You look
you.
good. I feel
Dude,
like I haven't seen you forever.
look at this.
Yo, is that a new
This
Cowboy
is
Cole shirt?
this is just the first mock-up shirt to like show me size and layout everything. We went over everything on Saturday. So be on the lookout for a new Cowboy Cole merch drop coming soon, dude. I'm freaking stoked.
Yo, that is fuego, buddy. That looks so mint. I
The
love
rodeo
it.
rig. Hell yeah, brother.
Wow. That's every
Yeah,
cowboy's dream, bro.
it is. 1000% it is.
So who designed that, Cole? That looks so good, buddy.
That is my design actually.
No way,
Yeah.
Cowboy Cole.
Yeah, I went through
God
and got
damn.
3 new graphics built up off of just like brainchild ideas, looking through stuff, piecing together what I liked, what I didn't like, and yeah, man, I'm really stoked to get them going here shortly.
You eclectic motherfucker. What don't you
Um,
do, bro? What don't you do? So, how are you, buddy? I haven't talked to you in a couple of days. How is Arizona?
it's good, dude. We're staying busy. It's been back super hot, so we've been riding a lot.
Oh,
Been
nice.
prepping to go home for the Calgary Ski Tour Do event, and then also got hired back to go to the Roughnecks Rodeo night. I'm gonna be on the
Yes.
mic, emceeing the whole intermission act.
Oh, dear. Ladies and gentlemen, hide your kids. Cowboy Cole's coming back.
Yeah,
Last year,
dude.
you did that for the first time, and that was a huge hit, right? You went
Yeah,
in,
dude.
like, so how does it work? What do you do? Tell us all about it.
So last year they just brought me in for the opening ceremony. I went running out through the tunnel through the cheerleaders, did rope tricks for like a minute, and then just kind of hung out with
Wow.
the team mascot, hype on the crowd. They did the national anthems, everything like that. And then this year they're bringing me back to do a little bit more rope tricks. And then the plan when I talked to Dusty was we're gonna do a boot race. And then we're gonna do a like self-propelled wagon race where so we're gonna get a couple rowdy people out of the crowd and do a little wagon race with them.
Yo, that's gonna be so cool, man. And talk about lacrosse, eh? Like the toughest sons of guns in the world. Those guys are like the bull riders of like organized sport.
Dude,
Unbelievable.
the ball is so hard, man, and they're just beating on each other with these sticks. Like when we watched the game last year, like I took my dad and we're at the game and dude, like just brutalizing each other out there. It's phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Cross-checking is allowed and it's encouraged,
It
and
is
they
encouraged.
do it. They do it real hard. But man, that's gonna be awesome. And the skijoring event for the first time in Calgary, right?
Um, I actually don't know the answer to that because I know it was in Millerville the year before. It's been out at the
Okay.
Polo Club close to Millerville before that. I've been to one out there. I don't know if
Okay.
it's the first one officially in Calgary or not. It might be. I'm not. I don't really know.
I'm learning. I thought it was just in Banff, so that's gonna be amazing. Probably huge crowds coming out. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude. It's gonna be at the fort, so there's gonna be a ton of room, and I'm stoked to see
Oh,
the turnout. It's gonna be rank.
and that's like right downtown. It's gonna be freaking dope. What is the weather like in Calgary? Do you know? I haven't
It,
checked.
it's cold as a motherfucker. Dude,
What do you think it is?
it's
It's
been like
February
minus
10th.
20 Celsius. Yeah, dude. February is the worst
Oh
month.
dear.
So
Well, it's gonna be a good time, buddy. I can't wait to see all the content you produce out there and stay up to date with you.
yeah, absolutely. And quick for the fans, where are you currently located?
So I'm currently located in a cafe in Brazil. So I apologize for any noise that may occur during this podcast. I'll turn my audio off when I'm not speaking. But yeah, I just came down to do some motivational speaking, and now I'm headed to Patagonia. I'll be leading 2 trips down there in the Andes in a beautiful
Mm.
national park called Nahuel Huapi. It's the oldest national park in Argentina. It just loses to Yellowstone in the U.S. So super old, super pristine, unbelievable, and just south of Bariloche. So I have the blessing, the pleasure, to go out there and spend half a month with 2 different groups and ride horses through some of the most beautiful country in the world, buddy. And then after that, I get married, bro.
Huge, dude. That's huge. You've been locked up in the freaking Alberta Arctic
Yeah.
here, so getting to go bomb around on some horses and
Oh,
some caballos and then marry your amor, it's gonna be good.
it's gonna be amazing, bro. But it's funny that the one comment everyone gives me is, "Oh my God, you're so white." I was like, this weekend I spent like outside. I'm like, I might be a little red here, but everyone's like, "You're so white." I was like, "Yo, man, I live in Canada. What do you want
Yeah.
me to do?"
If
Like,
I go outside for too long, I don't get a sunburn, I get frostbite.
Yeah, exactly. But it's crazy. You don't realize it because you're with a bunch of freaking ghosts when you're living there, right? But then when you come to Brazil and everyone looks beautifully tanned and like chocolate colored, you stand out.
Yeah, dude, for real. And speaking of
So,
stand
Cowboy,
out, dude,
go ahead.
speaking of
Yes,
stand out,
you're going where I'm going.
we got a standout guest, don't we? How about you tell us a little bit about who we got?
We're starting with a bang. This guy is not just a country artist, he is a country western artist. He's a rancher, he's a horseman. His dad was a vet. He's the real deal cowboy, and he writes about real deal cowboy stuff. Corb Lund out of Alberta, Canada, class act. How excited are you, buddy?
Dude, I'm stoked. I grew up listening to this guy, and the people around me grew up listening to this guy, right? Like,
Yes,
so
sir.
yeah, dude,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
kind of shaking in my little rodeo rig boots right now, dude.
Wow.
I'm stoked.
Man, it's gonna be so good. He's just, and again, he's just such a humble guy. I was looking up his Wikipedia page and like the amount of awards this guy has won all over the world. Like he's won awards in Australia, the UK. He tours the UK all the time.
Yeah,
He's played with some of the biggest names that you can imagine. And yeah, buddy, he's taking some time from his busy schedule to chat with us. So how cool is that?
it's super cool, man. New album out, big tour coming up, and we're kind of nabbing him right before he hits the road. So we're pretty fortunate, aren't we?
Yes, sir, we are. So without further ado, let's get it to the biggest cowboy singer in the world.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for making the time to be here with us. This is a big deal. We're like your number one and two fans here, bro.
Is the did you want it sideways or
That works
This
perfectly
is
for me.
perfect how it is.
is the audio okay?
Yeah, we got you
Audio
good on
sounds
this
great.
end.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds great. First question. Those are some epic things you have hanging up on the wall there. Tell us about that. That's so awesome, Corb.
Uh yeah, I kind of turned my house into a museum. See, that's my dad's vet clinic sign from the 70s. Uh
Wow.
what else is up there? That's my triple great grandpa up there on the third from the left. He was here in 1898, I think. He eventually settled near I think he worked on the McIntyre in the 1880s or not 1890s, and then settled up there somewhere. And then that red painting and the buffalo head, those are I used to paint when I was younger before I was so busy with music. So those are mine. And see, that's Mama Bear in the 60s.
Yeah, let's go.
Cool throwback.
It's so
That's my
interesting. Go
that's my
ahead.
grandpa. That's my grandpa up there. That one. He's
Wow.
at the Fort McLeod Stockyards in the 50s.
That is so cool, man. It's interesting you said that you painted because Keenan's mother, you know Keenan Vine,
Yeah.
his mom has a painting your dad I guess drew a long time ago because I knew he was a vet, I knew he was a bulldogger, but I didn't know he was an artist as well.
Yeah, he was a watercolor, did some sketching. Actually, you know have you heard my song We Used to Ride 'em?
Yes, sir.
That song's about a pair of spurs that we've had in the family for since the 1930s, I think. And it's a drawing of the spurs, and the title of the drawing that Dad did was called "We Used to Ride 'em." So I sort of stole the title of the sketch that he did of the spurs, and then wrote the song about the spurs.
Corb, what was your dad like? Was he a tough cowboy dad? Was he tough on you growing up?
Yeah, you know, I mean, if we didn't have dads to show us what to do, we'd all be shitheads, right?
Yes, sir.
Amen.
No, he was good. I mean, he was firm for sure, and he was, you know, I wouldn't say he was the best guy in the world at expressing his emotions or whatever. But no, he's great. He was very open-minded, and uh you'd have liked him. He's one of those kind of, like I said, kind of a Renaissance cowboy, and sort of traveled the world and had a lot of interests, and yeah, he was a veterinary doctor, and he was a an artist, and he rodeoed and had cattle. An interesting guy. I got my love of history from my dad, actually.
And so did that feed into traveling across the pond and going to places like Europe and whatnot? Because they took
What's
you as
that?
as a kid, correct? They took you over to Europe and whatnot as a kid?
No, they didn't take me to Europe. We traveled a lot. following around rodeo in North America, but they followed me to Europe actually. The first time they went to England, I was playing over there years ago, and they came over. They did do some interesting stuff before I was born. They Mom and Dad rodeoed in Australia for a season in the late '60s, and then I think I was 4 years old. I have memories of this. It's a very strange story. I want to make a documentary about this. Maybe you can help me, guys. But
Let's go.
he- Mom and Dad put on a rodeo in Zambia, Africa, in
What?
the 19, I think it's 73, 74. It was the 10th anniversary. Rhodesia split into two countries, Zimbabwe and Zambia in I think 63 or 64. And Zambia, still actually a pretty stable country. But on their 10th year anniversary of independence, they decided somebody got it in their head they wanted to have a Wild West show. So they called the government in Canada and the US to see if they had any Wild West shows. And the closest they just called the Rodeo Association. So apparently the word had been out for 6 months and no, they didn't have any takers. And Mom and Dad heard about it like a week before. And so they heard about it on a Thursday. And by the next Tuesday or Wednesday, they were on a flight to Zambia with
No.
Tommy Buse and his wife Rosemary.
No
Do
way.
you know what the
What?
Buses?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Rosemary and my mother were really good friends as kids. They barrel raced together. But anyway, the four of them and another fella named Gordon Kessler, they all went to Africa for a month, and they spent 3 weeks getting the stock together and building the corrals, and then they did a week's worth of performances. I've got
Is there video of this or like
yeah,
photos?
I have fantastic Super 8 footage of my dad trying to like the local African mounted police were ordered to become bronc riders, eh?
Oh,
And I've got
No
I've got
option,
really
eh?
great footage of my dad showing these guys how to shoot dog and um these guys trying to ride bulls and stuff. It's crazy.
Wow.
what
This
an
I
incredible
want to
experience.
yeah, what an experience. But I would love to see this footage. And if you're serious about doing a doc on this, I'd love to help you out. That would be an
Well,
extraordinary film.
I'd kind of like to go over there before it's too late and try to I want to sit my mom and Tommy. My dad's gone, but I'd like to get my mom and Rosemary and Tommy and sit them down and interview them. And then I'd like to go over there and see if you can find anybody who was involved back in the day, Be interesting. The funniest story was that uh well, they had a hell of a time finding stock until some ranchers from hours away heard what they were doing and brought in usable stock, I guess. And then these horses are pretty short, and they did a week's worth of performances. And one of the days early on in the week, Dad's hat blew off, and he was able to reach down and pick it up and put it back on his head, and not get the most applause of anything they did the whole day. So he had to do that every day after that.
That was in the front page of the news that he picked
Yeah.
up his hat. That's
And,
amazing.
and another
Go-
thing that was kind of funny is that I didn't mean to hijack this thing about my folks' trip to Africa, but
Man, it's
Oh, this
amazing.
is
Are you
really
kidding me?
cool.
I could talk about this whole episode.
yeah. So another thing that happened was that, the local African people were trying to ride broncs and wrestle steers and fooling around with ropes. And, these Canadian guys could do all these amazing things with these animals. And a lot of the people were pretty tribal still, like pretty tribal type people. And they kept noticing that when these cowboys from Canada could do all these amazing feats with animals, every once in a while they'd reach in their back pocket and take out a pinch of this magic potion they'd put in their lip, eh? So the Africans figured that the Copenhagen was some kind of potion for helping them control
That
animals
is
or something.
so funny. That's what makes them so tough, eh? The Cowboys is magic potion. Oh man, the stories you have, I just what I love about you most is that the first time I heard one of your songs was the only long rider I know, because obviously I'm a long rider. I've told Corb he's got to write another song called He Now Knows Two Long Riders. And
Hey,
someone sent, go ahead.
I just want to grab a book. Can you
Yes, sir.
pause for a second?
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead.
We'll pause for one sec. And the first time I heard that song, man, it was just his storytelling, like the way he tells stories and paints a picture through his words and through his songs. It's something that I think we're losing today. Like I think today everything's become so commercial, and like even country, it's so commercial. They talk about trucks, they talk about things that technically they're kind of country, but you talk about real life on the ranch. You talk about ag. You talk about, the funny stories of your dad, like the bird that, died and then he just bought a new one and the bird learned how to sing. But you
That
paint these
happened. That's
stories.
real.
I know it's real. I know it's real because you can't make that shit up. Like, you know what I mean? And the same thing with the Long Rider. Show us the book. It's your
Yeah.
friend
Okay. Well,
and tell us his
I
story.
don't need to tell you, but here's your books, right?
Let's go.
And
Nice.
so I've told you about this guy before. This is my friend, the guy that I wrote the song about. He's a Brit. His name's James Greenwood. Did I send you this book?
Yes, sir. I've read it. It's
Did you?
unbelievable. A
Yeah.
big smile, no gun, right?
Yeah, yeah. You guys should meet sometime. He's a really great guy.
I
And
feel
then
like
I
it'd be
have this.
bad news if we met. We're gonna like go ride through
Yeah, you
Australia or
guys are gonna
something.
take off.
This is about his South American trip. He rode from Argentina up to DC, I think, or
Oh,
where'd he
yeah,
go?
that's it.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was
And
Argentina up to the United States. Yes, sir.
yeah. And then this one is his manuscript. I don't think he ever published this yet, but this is his second book. He
Wow.
rode from Japan through Mongolia, and then I think
Wow.
through Iran, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, Greece, up back to London. So that's this book.
That
Oh
is
my
amazing,
gosh.
man.
And
Unbelievable
then
story.
this is The Godfather, as you know, I'm sure.
Oh, Chifley's ride, baby.
Shipley's ride.
Chifley Manchengato between Criollo years.
Anyway, I'm a
Yeah, man.
nerd.
My dad used to read that book to me when I was a little kid. It changed my life. And that's why I always tell people read to your kids, man. The power of literature. It literally changed my life. My dad hadn't read me that book. But going back to you, what the question I wanted to ask is you paint these pictures through your lyrics, through your songs. Has it always been like that? Or is that something that you learned along your career?
Yeah, I've always been a sucker for story songs. To this day, I'm a story song guy, like Kenny Rogers and Jerry Reed and Steve Earle's good and Johnny Horton. That's where all my military history stuff comes from. But the best album I've ever heard in my life is the first one I liked, and it's still my favorite is that Marty Robbins Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs album. My folks had that in the house, and it's full of stories, Western stories. And yeah, I don't know. I've always been. I mean, I like the musical part too of what I do, but I've this and I mean, not every one of my songs is a story. Some of them are word paintings, but most of them are stories. There's a lot of lyricists who are more like poets, and it's more abstract, which is cool. It's a different approach, but most of my stuff is pretty specific and has a tale involved. And I don't know. I just enjoy. I mean, I feel lucky. You guys probably too, but I know a lot of people that move around a lot when they're young and they've got this in their background and that in their background. But my background is very focused. It's both sides of my family are ranched in Alberta for 100 years, 120 years, and before that, they both came from Utah. They're raising cows down there. So my whole family background is very focused. So it's feels very natural for me to write about that stuff, about our culture and our region and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It's fun.
That's something we talk about a lot too. Like, it seems like no matter where you grew up in the Western world, it can be very tunnel vision and very focused on one thing. Um, but at the end of the day, if you can niche down in on what you know the best, I mean, you have some of the catchiest songs from real world situations. Truck Got Stuck being a prime example, right? I remember hearing that as a kid and just thinking about all the adults around me that would bitch about being stuck in a frickin' field somewhere. And it took everybody to get them out. Like, that's how
Yeah,
real
that's a true
world
story
stuff.
too. My friend Scott and I was on his place years ago. We actually drove. We were at his place. It's north of Tabor, about an hour, 40 minutes, and we actually drove by the spot that it happened, and the ruts are still there. We made a hell of a mess. We're gonna
Yeah,
put up a
right.
plaque.
I don't know if I
Yeah, you
believe
should.
that. I don't know if I believe that. I want to see a photo of this.
Yeah, we got a. I'll send it to you.
All right. I'll show everyone after. But do you like along your career, were you ever like pressured to sing different kind of songs? Because what you sing is so different from country to me. Like it's like I said, it's not commercial, it's so real, it's so raw. Were you ever pressured by the big guys to be like, hey, sing more about trucks and beers, or did they always leave you alone to do your music?
No, zero.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, that's why I'm not Garth. I'll never be huge, which is okay. I enjoy where I'm at, but no, my entire career, like you probably know this, I was in a metal band for 10 years. That
I know that blows my
Smalls.
mind.
The
Black
Smalls.
Sabbath fan number one over here. That's so funny to me. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like I spent 10 years playing underground heavy rock music, and that world is like I mean, the first 17 years of my life were all Western, and then the next 10 were in a hard rock world, and the music scene we were part of was very underground and independent. We had a real cult following, but the whole ethic in that world was to come up with your own sound and your own vibe and your own take on it. And you were encouraged to be the goal of that scene that we were in was to be unique and come up with your own angle. So when I started playing Western music, it just transferred to that. And so, I mean, I don't. I don't know. I don't know what it's like I've done a little bit of that Nashville stuff just to see what it's like, and it's kind of a bummer. Like those guys have to write in a tiny little box, and fuck that. I don't. I'd probably just be a plumber or something if I had to do that.
That's very, very punk rock of you. I love that. I love
Yeah.
your attitude, man.
Well, I mean, honestly, it doesn't look like much fun. Like for one thing, it's a lottery, right? Like one in 10,000 people that tries to do that makes it, and there's no path that I can see that doesn't take a lot of luck. Because I mean, there's a lot of guys and women who are really good at that thing, and they keep doing the same thing, and they're all really good at it. So who knows which one of them is going to succeed? My approach has always been just to find your own path, and you know, it's very rare that someone like me becomes massive, and that's fine. But like to me, it's the difference between really radio music is a function of corporatism. It's the same as the difference between a pair of runners made in a sweatshop versus handmade boots, or a McDonald's hamburger and a grass-fed steak. It's the same thing. Like, I don't know. I'm not judging. It's just different. And my interest lies in expressing myself and finding my own voice and all that stuff. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, and even the way you can connect with a crowd, like it's weird to hear you say that, I may never get that big, Garth Brooks, whatever, right? Because, dude, I feel like you are just absolutely crushing. You can sell out kind of wherever you want to go sell out. I got to go watch you do a solo show, um, with Kimes at the 2023
Oh, yeah.
NFR at that off-strip venue. And dude, myself included, you had people in freaking tears in that place, and it was packed, and just how connected we all felt to each other and to the guy on stage, aka you. That's special, dude. That's
Well,
special.
it's funny you say that because that's why I got into this in the first place. Like some people tour and play live to support their records. I've always been the opposite. I don't mind making records. It's kind of interesting and it's sort of fun, but that's the real juice is playing live. And when I used to go see bands, whether it was a punk rock band or a country band or whatever, or a blues band, like you can tell in the first 15 seconds, like it's a magical thing. Like you can tell, okay, this person's got they have done this for they got this, right? And when I saw that when I was young, I just I was fascinated by it, and I wanted to know what it felt like to be that guy. And that was kind of the motivation. Is like, wow, that must be to get to the point where you can, you know, guide an audience through an emotional journey like this effortlessly or seemingly effortlessly. I was always like, what kind of growth and inner heights would you have to achieve to be able to do that? So, and the communication thing is like that's where the real rubber meets the road for me. That's the part that I enjoy, and that's the part I get energy from, and that's the part that I feel the same as the audience feels. Like when you really feel connected at a show, that's I feel that too. Maybe more so, I don't know, but that's the whole motivation for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
that's
It's exact. Go ahead, Cole.
That's huge. I kind of I get similar feelings honestly, and kind of why I started dipping my toe into doing stand up and whatnot when I was a kid. Got to go to
Yeah.
Disneyland and saw Billy Hill and the Hillbillies
Uh,
perform, and the way they just had everybody connected up there being western and silly, and the banjo solos, and just I remember being a kid and being like, man, if this is what show business is, sign me up, dude, because like these guys are, you could tell they're being authentically themselves and just having the best time together for people, and they get to bring people along on that journey with them, man. It was very cool.
Yeah, I don't mean to get too heavy about it, but for me, it's almost religious, not religious, it's spiritual, or whatever you want to say. I don't want
yeah,
to be too much of a hippie about it, but if you
yeah,
think about it, like if you look at a big tent revival or a tribal ceremony
100%.
in
Yeah.
the Amazon or any of those things, it's a bunch of people with a beat and a common experience and
Mhm.
somebody typically leading it, whether it's a preacher or a shaman or a musician or whatever it is. And there's a thing to that. Like that's a magical thing. And I don't know exactly how to describe it, but anybody who's been to a really good show knows what I'm talking about. It's a transcendent shared experience that's what it's about for me. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, amen to that. That's
Yeah.
sweet.
And you do an extraordinary job at it, man. And it definitely is energy. It definitely is magic. And tell us, you kind of alluded to it a bit that that's what got you into the music. But I actually want to know, like, walk us through, like, when did you start playing the guitar? When did you start getting into music? And what led you that way? Was that someone in the family? You talked about your parents having records on. What got you into music?
Well, as a kid, I listened to a lot of music, but it was all my parents' stuff, and it was Kenny Rogers and the Statler Brothers and Johnny Horton and Marty Robbins, like I said. Um, I think I picked up guitar when I was 15, but it wasn't because of that. It was because it's funny because like I guess some people pay a lot of money to go to a dude ranch and experience Western stuff, and that's really exotic to them. To me, that was just like normal. I like it, but it's just that's just normal life, right? To me, when I heard like Iron Maiden, that was awesome. Like that was super. That was another world, or Sabbath or whatever. And that was the thing that really piqued my interest. That was the first thing that really piqued my interest outside of what I got from my family. The first step out into the big world, big old world. And yeah, I picked up a guitar at 15 because of that kind of music and started playing. And like I said, when I was about 19, me and some friends in Edmonton started a band called The Smalls, which is that heavy rock band I was talking about. We did that for 10 years. And it's funny though, because after a few years of playing rock guitar, I figured out that on acoustic I could kind of play those Marty Robbins songs that I grew up with. So it was like kind of a bonus. And so I think about the Smalls lasted 10 years. And I think I wrote my first Western song, which is that We Used to Ride 'em song about the Spurs I was talking about. I think I wrote that about 5 years into the Smalls. And then I just started writing Western songs on the side and playing gigs on the side. And the Smalls retired in 2001. And I'd already been playing some smaller shows, but that's when I got really serious. And I moved to Austin, Texas, because that was kind of a songwriting mecca at the time. And I wrote a lot of the $5 bill record there, about half here in Alberta and half there, and then recorded that. And that was the first, like, really when I got really serious about, Western music or whatever you want to call what I do now. I I call it agricultural tragic. That's that album that I made called Agricultural Tragic. It's kind of a joke because it's not really a joke. It's serious too, but people always ask me what kind of music I play, and I don't really know exactly what to say because country is a whole nother thing that we talked about, and you know we're sort of Americana and we're sort of rockabilly, but yeah, I joke that that's my own personal subgenre is agricultural tragic.
What was your role with the Smalls? Were you writing songs, singing, and playing guitar?
I was playing bass. I was the bass player, and I wasn't the singer. I did some backup vocals, but I wrote a lot of the songs and I played bass.
What were those songs about?
Well, I think my childhood buddy Mike, he wrote probably 60%, 70% of the lyrics, and I wrote the other 30. You can tell because all mine are like Western stuff, like trying like overlaid on heavy metal.
No.
So so all the songs about pack horses and gunfights and stuff like that are mine.
That is awesome.
I love
I need
that
to find this
combination.
music. Can we still find the music? Is it on
Oh
Spotify? Where can
yeah.
we find it?
Yeah. We have 4 records. The best one's called To Each His Own. Oh, sorry, that was our second one. That's my second favorite. My very favorite is called My Dear Little Angle. I'd listen to that one first.
Oh,
Okay,
dude, I can't wait.
everyone listening or watching this, let's go after this podcast. Let's go listen to that. I can't wait. But speaking of records, let's talk about El Viejo. I love it. I love it. I love the title. I love the songs. Tell me about Ian Tyson and how he came into this record for you. And I think El Viejo is about him, right? You guys used to call
Yeah.
him the old man.
Yeah.
Tell us a little
Um,
about that.
yeah, El Viejo is our newest one. I think it's our 10th record of original stuff. And it was interesting because I did it I've been gravitating this way more and more, but it's all acoustic. Like there's not a single electric lick on the record of any, no electric
You
guitars,
recorded
no electric
all in your
bass.
living room as well, right? Like in your house, the record
Yeah,
was recorded there. That's so cool.
yeah.
Cool.
Like, the longer I do this, the more I'm into like the organic humanness of it. And in this day and age, it's always been this way, but especially now, you can make records that sound really slick and really professional, and it's all computers and layers and bullshit like that. But I don't know. I feel like I like the raggedness of music. And even now, like some of my favorite recordings are old Johnny Cash records or Bob Dylan records where it's like kind of sounds shitty and like sometimes they miss a line, or I love that stuff because it's human, right? And
Sure.
so anyway, yeah, we just sat in a circle and there's hardly any layering or computer stuff. It's just the four of us playing. And that's actually really hard. You have to have a really good band to do that. My band are awesome. But because today what they do is, I don't know if you know this, but often they put the drums down and then the bass player puts that in his headphones and plays bass to it, and then the guitar player plays over that, and then the singer takes 3 weeks to do the vocal on one song, and they tweak it and layer it and tune it and all that shit. And like, if you do it in a circle, you can't fix things because everybody is in everybody else's mic. So if you take the guitar out, the guitar is still in all the mics. So you can't do any of that crap. So um, yeah, it's just a live record of four guys playing the tunes in my living room, which is pretty much what it sounds like. And if you have a band that can do that, I think it has a real it's quite compelling. Um,
Not
and then the
And
title
what? Go
track.
ahead.
Oh, good. I'm talking too much.
No, no, we're here to hear you, buddy. You go ahead. You go.
Well, I was going to say, you asked about Tyson. So the title track, El Viejo, yeah, it's sort of a tribute to him. He was a good friend. He died a couple of years ago. For those of For the 2% of your audience that doesn't know who Ian Tyson is, he's an Alberta songwriter, a cowboy songwriter that was a big influence on me. And anybody who grows up Western in Canada or even in the States, Ian Tyson is like he's got to be one of the very best cowboy songwriters ever. And he was a good friend of mine for about 20 years. And he passed away 2 years ago. I think he was 88. And people ask if he was a mentor, I guess, but it's funny, that guy, he was pretty hip. Like it never felt like I was hanging out with somebody his age. It always felt like I was hanging out with you guys or somebody my own age or one of my peers. And he was just a really good friend. I learned some stuff from him, but mostly we were just good friends. And we toured together quite a bit and recorded some stuff together. And anyway, he was a big loss. And it was a strange thing because when he passed away, it's a very it was kind of disorienting because like I got to do like 5 interviews about it, because of his public his public image, his
yeah.
notoriety, and people knew him, right? He's famous, and because people knew that I was friends with him, I had to do a whole bunch of interviews, and it was of two minds about it because I mean I did them all because I want to respect his legacy and his work, but it was also weird because I had to like do an interview about my buddy who just passed away. Like it's kind of gross in a way. But I did it because it's important to honor his legacy. But anyway, about I don't know if it was 6 or 8 months after that, I figured I'd write something about him or for him or involving him, and I didn't really push it. I just forgot about it and let it come to me naturally. And one day, that El Viejo song came to me in an afternoon, which is rare for me. Usually, my songs take months because I chip away at them slowly, and that one mostly came in one sitting, which is unusual. But yeah, it's got a lot of Elko, Nevada content in it. Elko, Nevada has an event. It's in a little cow town in northern Nevada that has an event every January called the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering. And Ian had about 3 phases to his career. He was a folk star in the '60s, but he started writing uh, cowboy songs in the '70s, and in the early '80s he made a record called Cowboyography, and another one called Old Corrals and Sagebrush, which both were sort of at the forefront of a real movement towards traditional cowboy music and traditional cowboy songwriting, and also rediscovering a lot of the old classics. But Elko Elko's Poetry Gathering and Music Festival started about the same time, the early '80s, and Ian's Western career and that event sort of paralleled each other, and he was a huge part of that thing. And I've played many times. He had him hire me when I was young, and I've played there a bunch. And not only did we lose Ian Tyson, we lost Don Edwards, who was a fixture. He's a Texas singer who was a fixture at that event, and also Baxter Black, who was a famous veterinary poet,
Yeah,
comedic. You guys know him, I'm sure.
Baxter had some freaking awesome stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, El Viejo's a tribute to Ian. It's one of my favorite songs that I've written, actually.
Is that where you got to play with Coulter Wall and Ian Tyson, share the stage with them one time?
Mhm.
What's that like, man? Like you must have shared the stage with some pretty epic people, I'm sure, through your lifetime, but that's like three generations of like real cowboy
Yeah.
music. Like that's cool.
Well, it was really neat. Yeah, a lot of times at festivals, you have the big shows at night, and then they have little song swaps in the afternoon. And yeah, they put me and Tyson and Coulter together, and it was really cool because like you say, it was like three generations of Canadian cowboy music. The only thing I didn't like about it was that, man, I'm not the young guy anymore. Now I'm the middle guy. I
But
can't
you
be the
sound and look younger than Coulter, so it doesn't matter. You're still winning.
We just did a bunch of shows with him in the States. It was awesome. He's huge, man. It's really cool.
He has
Unbelievable.
blown up big time, eh?
I played a show with him a number of years ago in Amsterdam. It was kind of a last minute thing. My show, I was on my own tour and it fell through. And he asked me to open for his show in Amsterdam at this place called the Paradiso, which is a really famous rock club there. It was the weirdest thing, man. He had all these hipster Dutch kids in skinny jeans, just like gaga over, Little Joe the Wrangler and all these old songs that we all grew up with.
Dude, everybody wants to be a cowboy in some way, shape, or form. I big time believe that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
true.
And if they can live it through songs like that you put out or Coulter puts out or whatever, they find their way to live that lifestyle. And when they get to see him, man, they're gonna come out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because Western culture seems like every 15 years ago, it seems like it hits a high watermark in the popular psyche. I don't know how old you guys are, but when I was just really really young, that Urban Cowboy movie came out with John Travolta, and
Oh
everybody
yeah.
got into being cowboys, whatever, or trying to. And then I think maybe like in the 90s, Garth kind of did it again, and it became cool to wear hats and stuff. And then obviously now we're in the waning days of the Yellowstone era, right?
Hmm.
100%, the Yellowstone effect, right? But I think there's something about the freedom. There's an allure to Western culture, the horse and the range, and that always pull people in, whether they're in Amsterdam. By the way, I would give my right
And the
arm to be at
Pistola.
that show. Yeah, the
Sorry, what?
Pistola. I said I'd give my right arm to be at that show with you guys. Like that sounds
Yeah,
like the greatest night in the world. But while we're speaking about this, how it's cool to be cowboy again. Just a question: did you hear about Beyonce winning the best what was it, best country album and the Grammys? What'd you
yeah.
think about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I have about three different answers. The first one is the funniest. It's whenever my bass player Sean Burns, he's like a deep, deep country fan. Like he knows who played on what and everything. And when when people say, "What do you think of the Beyonce country album?" He goes, "She's a great talent."
Just leaves it at that.
That's his answer. No, I don't know. I mean, whatever. I don't really care. I mean, it's not really that country of a record, but having said that, it's probably about as country as everything else on the radio, so why not?
Facts.
Doesn't bother me.
Facts.
That shit's so far from my reality. I don't care.
That's so
I mean,
funny.
good for her. I like her music. I like her other music, so she is a great talent.
She is. You
And
got to take your
I
hat off to
actually
her.
for the record, I think it's really good when artists from any genre dip their toe in other stuff. I think that's really healthy. That's where good. It doesn't always work. Like it's not always successful, but mixing things together in a pot, I mean, that's where it's at. So
Yes,
good
sir.
for her.
I mean, Post
That's
Malone,
awesome.
he's killing it with his F1 Trillion album or whatever. Like his stuff sounds not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I haven't heard it. I don't spend much time in that world, so I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
That's fair.
What kind of music do you listen to? Like, what are you listening to right now? Do you listen to music? Like, what do you do when you're at home?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, why is there cheesecake above your head?
I'm in Brazil, so I stopped at a random coffee shop. This isn't
Oh,
like
okay.
the decoration
It
of my
looks
house.
three-dimensional. It looks
This
like
is
it's
my
gonna
my
fall on you.
uncle. So yeah, let's do my turn up. My uncle painted this. He was a cheesecake chef.
What I listen to all kinds of stuff. I mean, I like I still like metal a lot. I like really heavy stuff from Norway. And
No way. What's going on in Norway? That's where the heavy metal's at?
yeah, in the 90s there was a real movement. Uh it's called black metal or death metal that a
Okay.
lot of it came from Norway. Yep.
Those
Oh, I did
Vikings.
And I
not know
like
that.
yeah, look up there's a crazy story about this band called Mayhem from Norway in the early 90s. Like there was murder involved and cannibalism. It was crazy.
Whoa, some
What?
serious mayhem.
Not endorsing the behavior, but the music's pretty good.
Wait, you can't just say that and not like finish the story. What happened? Who ate who? What's going on here?
Well, it's kind of complicated. Somebody, one of the guys, the singer killed himself, and then the guy who replaced him, it's kind of foggy. I think what happened was he had his own side project, and the bass player or the guitar player in the band was putting his records out through his label, and there's some kind of altercation, and there was a stabbing, and then there was some implication of stew being made or something. I don't know. It's
Oh,
That's not why I like it. I mean, that's just incidental. But there's another band from Sweden called Entomb that's really good. But and I listen to lots of old Western music still. Like Marty Robbins is still on the playlist, and I don't know, all kinds of stuff, jazz and blues and yeah. I honestly I get bored easily, so I pick and choose from all over the place. I've been rediscovering. I've been uh I'm going through my 56th uh Chris Ledoux fascination. Every couple of years I get deep into him again. It's interesting because we're talking before about the do-it-yourself underground independent rock scene I was part of. It's kind of cool because if you get signed by a label, there's somebody who books you and somebody who does your graphic design and somebody who does all that stuff. But if you do it independently, you do it all yourself. Like I was my own booking agent and my own publicist and my own manager, and I made the t-shirts and all that stuff in the band, me and the guitar player in the Smalls. And turns out growing up in a rural ranchy setting is a very, that's the same thing you do at home, right? You do it yourself. If something breaks, you fix it. And you learn how to operate equipment, you learn how to do stuff on your own. So that set of skills, the do-it-yourself thing, mapped very well onto the do-it-yourself music thing. But it was interesting because when I read about the early days of Chris Ledoux, he was doing the same thing. Like he was doing it real punk rock. Like he was selling CDs and cassettes out of the back of his pickup at rodeos, and his dad was producing the records, and his wife was doing the mail order. I identify with that very strongly. I'm really good friends with his sons, Will and Ned. Ned is a singer. We've written
yeah.
some songs together, and his brother Will is a really good friend of mine. And Will's been a merch guy since he was like 10 because he used to sell his dad's t-shirts, and he just took over all that side of things, and now he's runs the whole Ledoux mail order and merch operation. So anyway, I find it really cool that the Ledoux experience is pretty much the same as the do-it-yourself indie rock thing, which is also the same set of skills that is handy when you're a ranch kid.
That's awesome.
That kind of circles me back to a question about how you guys recorded the whole album in your living room and how everybody just had to be so in sync. It is like a farming and ranching operation where you're relying on the other guy to do his job so that the whole friggin' wheel will turn. What was the process like of putting the Hurt and Albertans together? Where did those guys come from? Did you have some trials and errors with a drummer and finally found the right guy? What was that like?
Yeah, it's evolved over the years. Like the very first two records were guys I knew. See here, just trying to think. Yeah, so the very first record I made was with the bass player that I knew from the Smalls, and the drummer. His name is Ryan Bickadell. He did the first couple of records with me, and then he joined Nickelback. Our,
No way.
my dad and his uncle rodeoed together. Sorry, I misspoke. The guitar player Ryan Peake in Nickelback. His uncle and my dad rodeoed together. He's from Hannah, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, then I replaced him with a guy from Tabor named Brady on the drums, and then my bass player I met at Jazz College in Edmonton way back when, and then you sort of lose people and pick people up on the way. Usually it becomes sort of a recommendation thing. Like if I need to replace somebody or even a substitute, I basically rely on my band guys because they have their ear to the ground, and if they vouch for him, he's good, right? So
Mhm.
it's just kind of like who you know, and you know, if you trust your buddy's judgment and he's good at what he does, you sort of take his word for it. So yeah, it's sort of a musical community thing.
That's what I think really appeals me of I don't want to say like the rock star lifestyle or whatever, but having your brothers in arms up there with you, right? Having that community of boys that you do your music with and do your art with, that's the big draw for me in terms of like being in a band like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like, it's not all fun, but we go through good times and bad times together, and you really do develop a bond, a brotherhood for sure. Like we spend a lot of time in the van together and on buses,
Mhm.
and it's an especially intimate relationship in a way because not only are you in a van together all day, then you got to go up on stage in front of 5,000 people and you know emotionally express yourself together. So it's really close because if something we're pretty good at avoiding conflict now because if it's too much of a pain in the butt. If it's not important, we all just let shit slide off our backs. But if you're having a problem in the band, like between guys, it affects the show because it's really hard to like not get along with somebody off stage and then do the thing with them. You can do it. Everyone's a professional, so you can get through the show, but the vibe is weird, as you can imagine.
Yeah, it'd be tough. And do you enjoy that part of it? Like I was looking at your schedule, it's insane, right? You're touring in Europe, you're touring over the US, you're touring in Canada. Do you enjoy that part of it, or is there sometimes where that becomes a tough thing to do away from an energy thing, and it takes your energy away when you have that many people that want to take photos with you and you're signing autographs and you're singing. Like, what's that part of it like for you?
Well, in general, I love it, but yeah, it can. You just have to take time off. Like my farm boy work ethic sometimes gets me into trouble because I overextend myself, and then
Yeah.
I become a dick. And I like it's tough because this sounds really pompous, but the fact of the matter is that if you play on stage, people know you more than you know them usually, just because it's a job, right? And so it's hard to explain to people how draining it can be to like just chit chat with the 50th person. And I love chit chatting with people and I love
Right.
that part of the job, but it's just your gas tank gets empty. And then Ron McLean, the hockey commentator,
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh yeah.
I asked for he's a music fan. I've run into him a few times. I asked him for a picture one time and I said, I'm really sorry, man. I know you get this all the time, but I got to do it. Big fan. And he's like, you know what? I don't mind at all. Because I'll tell you something. Because he knew I was a musician. He said, I'll tell you something. You meet people, that 30 seconds is all they're going to remember. So I do my best to be polite, but it's yeah, long way of saying I love it, but it can be tiring if you don't take breaks.
Yeah, it'd be tough, right? Because you're playing the show, you're tired, or whatever, 2 hours on stage, and all of a sudden you got to talk to 50 people that are telling you the stories of their dad the one time that, it gets draining, but you got to be the nice guy. And
I'm
wow.
gonna write a book. I got to write about 3 books actually. I want to write one about my band members, and I want to write one called Road Manager about all the ridiculous people I've had being road managers for me.
Tell us
And the
about
thing
that.
is,
We'll go deeper into that. What does that mean?
well, road manager is the guy who, gets everybody together and makes the schedule and tells you when the sound check is and books the hotel rooms, all that stuff.
Is he like the
And we took,
father of the band type thing? Like he's the responsible
well,
one?
I don't think any of them were of the character that we would consider them father figures. But the thing is, like, if you play, we played in the States we do quite well down there now, but for years and years, we played there to nobody. We grounded out for years down there. And so anybody that we could afford had to be shitty, an idiot, or had some flaw because if not, they would be on a bus with a bigger band, right? And we're
I
we're
feel
in a
like I
van
feel like
playing to
you're
nobody.
describing like the caddy of Happy Gilmore. Like this is a guy that you just take off the street
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah,
pretty much.
kind of.
Okay,
No
okay.
shoes.
And so we just had a litany of ridiculous human after ridiculous human doing this job. And yeah, I need to write that book because uh, we had some humdingers.
That is awesome.
I
Yeah, to
want
be
to write another one called Travels with Tyson, like a a
Oh,
memoir about experiences with Ian.
what was he like? I've never met him. Like I've listened to his music my entire life. Like I imagine he would be like this epic storyteller, fun guy, like to drink, like the life of the party. Am I right? What was he like to be around?
Well, he wasn't. I think in his earlier days he partied a lot, but he wasn't drinking a whole lot when I knew him. But
Okay.
he was very witty, very funny guy,
Yeah.
and really well read and worldly, yet super cowboy at the same time. And he had a reputation for being kind of a little prickly with people, but he was never really that way with me. I think he spent his entire life in the public's eye from
Yeah.
when he was 20, right? And he was a massive, he and Sylvia were massive folk stars in the 60s. So I think that his prickliness was mostly just sort of a self-defense mechanism because I've seen him be prickly and then kind of wink at me or whatever, right? Just to create space for himself, you know?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Like you said, that
Wow.
gas tank was probably on big time E at the end of his career, right? Where he's just like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I'm done with all this.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But he was really funny guy, very witty and he was like a historian of the West. He had the best Western book collection I've ever seen.
No way.
Whole wall of his living room is all Western books.
Hmm.
And how did you guys come together? Because I know you guys were close for 15, 20 years. Like, how did that come about? Was it just one day you were playing a show and he was also playing there? Or how did it happen?
Sort of like that. We in the early 2000s, I was part of an Ian Tyson tribute show called The Gift. Like a bunch of us traveled around Western Canada doing Ian Tyson songs, and we he came to the show in Calgary. So playing MC Horses, knowing Ian's reputation, and him right in front of you in the front row was kind of
Right.
intimidating. But I got
Wow.
through it, and he was really nice to me. He had heard my $5 bill record and was very complimentary. And we just got to know each other and started hanging out. And he took me on tour in the States a few times. And like I said, he got me booked at that Elko Poetry Gathering deal. And yeah, great guy.
That was
So
awesome.
the fourth book I want to write is called Yugoslavian Travelogue because in the 1990s, my metal band, the Smalls, we went on a tour in Eastern Europe, and we went all through Yugoslavia. It was '98, so it was right after that really horrible war they had there, and it was really crazy because the whole countryside, the villages are all burned out, and in Sarajevo, like there was like bullet holes in the lobby of the hotel we stayed at, and it was safe because everyone was happy we were there because the war was over at that point. But yeah, lots of crazy stories there. We got pulled over a mountain range by a UN tank because it was wintertime and it was blizzarding and we had a shitty car that we'd rented and all the other cars are shitty and the roads are shitty. This is in Bosnia. And the UN was there at the time, and this tank came along with a UN flag, but then it had a German flag. And then we had rented our car in Berlin, so it had German plates, so they probably figured we were brothers. So we're in this long line of cars trying to get up this shitty mountain road in the middle of a blizzard, and this tank, like a full-on leopard tank, hooked onto us and took us up to the crest of the hill, and we just missed the show. We missed the show in Sarajevo by an hour, but it was a cool story.
Germans help Germans no matter what, dude. I swear.
And
Wow.
I was on Bosnian with the cute little hostess and my scruffy little interpreter kid, and
Oh, is there video? Is this on YouTube? Can we find this?
I don't know, man. That's a long time ago. I saw it at one
Oh,
point, but and then I had to argue with this ex Soviet bureaucrat to get visas to go into Serbia because we had shows in Belgrade and Novi Sad, but this was during the Kosovo conflict. So NATO was actually bombing Belgrade a month before we were supposed to play our show, and so they wouldn't let us in, and there was a big rigmarole. But yeah, lots of good stories there too. I'm off on a tangent. I'll shut up.
That gives playing the bunker a whole new meaning. You know what I'm saying?
man, that is unbelievable. You have like the greatest stories ever. You've lived so much, man. You've really, I always tell people, I meet so many people that are on airplane mode that are going through this life and not really experiencing it. And meeting people like you that are actually, taking this opportunity we have and doing something with it is so amazing. And you're doing an amazing thing right now for Alberta, for Canada. You're the main voice against the mining that's about to happen, is happening, the coal mining. I want you to talk a little bit about that, Corb. Two things, what made you become so passionate about this issue? And two, do you fear that this will get in the way of your fans, your music?
Um, okay, that's a big topic. So when I talk about this, I always say two things. Number one, I don't care about political parties, and this isn't about which party did it and which party didn't. I don't like any of the parties, frankly, and this is just about keeping the Old Man River not destroyed.
Yes, sir.
And secondly, I'm not against resources. I'm not a crazy hippie about it. I know we need stuff, but every project has to be looked at on its own merit. And so what happened was in 2020, some ranching families from up near Nanton, it wasn't crazy lefty eco warriors that got me into the coal thing. It was generational ranching families who were going to have their places destroyed by these Australian coal mines. And so they came to me and they said that they needed help getting the word out of what they were dealing with because no one paid attention to them. And I don't love it when celebrities speak off about stuff either. Like no one does, right? And so I took about a month and I met with a ton of people on both sides of it. I met with coal CEOs and I met with the government ministers and I got a really thorough understanding of the situation before I said anything. And after looking at it, giving it a fair shake, it's really dumb. It's really threatening. It's going to really threaten the headwaters of a number of our major rivers in the middle of a drought. And there's no economic benefit for us because the handful of jobs they're going to get have to be weighed against ag jobs. And not to be cynical about it, but any short-term gain they get out of it is going to be eclipsed by the huge mess that the taxpayers are going to have to clean up in 20 years. I almost guarantee that's going to happen because it happens all the time. That's part of the business model, right? And it's discouraging because the more I dig into this, like the government changed the coal policy and opened up huge swaths, like 1,500 square kilometers of the eastern slopes to coal mining without consulting the public or anything, and they just quietly made this change. And I hadn't heard about it until the ranch people told me about it. And so we started talking about it. If I would have made some noise about it and the rest of the province was into it, I would have shut up. But when I started talking about it and bringing attention to it, like the whole province started screaming at him. And like the polling has said that something like 80% of people are against it, which is unheard of in polling. And the only people I've ever met that are in favor of it are a handful of people in the Crow's Nest Pass that want the jobs and the government for some reason. So anyway, I don't love it. I don't like being in the public eye for this because like I've never ever in my entire 35-year music career have spoken about anything politically ever. I've deliberately stayed out of it because I don't know, I just think that music has another role to play sometimes. But this is in my own backyard and I get a lot of pushback from people saying, well, why don't you leave? It's like, well, first of all, I'm a sixth generation Albertan, and I'm not from Hollywood on a jet flying in here to give people shit. And again, I'm not a crazy lefty. It was ranching families who were going to have their places destroyed. So sorry, but I feel, and I literally drink the water, and so does my family, and so do our animals out of the Old Man River, which is the first one that's going to be really threatened in the middle of a 7-year drought because coal mines almost always pollute the water downstream and the groundwater as well. And B, it's super thirsty washing coal. It takes a lot of water, and we're already over allocated in the irrigation district. Anyway, it's just a bad deal. And the more I dig into it, again, this isn't about parties. I don't care. But the fact is, the more I dig into this, it's really corrupt. Like there's a ton of backroom meetings, and I don't know. It's anybody who's fair-minded, who isn't ideologically attached to this stuff, would look at it and understand that it's a bad deal.
And how is it looking right now? Is it going to go through? Like, are we going to be able to
I don't know,
stop
man.
this?
It's back and forth. Like we had him on the run for a while, and then they changed government ministers, and they just recently put it again with no consultation after the public screaming at him like blue murder. They removed the protections a second time, and so it's back and forth. So we're in for a long haul, I think. The thing is that the government and the coal companies, they do this for a living, and they got teams of expensive lawyers and all that shit. And anybody that's fighting it, like I got a job, and the ranchers, they need to feed cows. So we just keep fighting them over and over and over. And it has to be, we fought the same mine, this Grassy Mountain mine up by Crow's Nest Pass. The government at the provincial and the federal level 3 years ago determined that it wasn't in the public interest and turned it down. The coal companies appealed it twice, lost the appeals. It was put to bed, and then somehow just last year it came up again, and they're trying it again. So we're having to fight the same fight over and over. And more people in ag are starting to figure it out. Like at first it was mostly the left people, which is understandable because they're usually against that kind of stuff. But more and more ag people are starting to understand that this is really going to affect our water, right? And no matter what you think about resources, I mean, again, I'm not anti-resource, but water's number one, man, right?
Yeah,
Water
you're
is
just
life,
a
man.
concerned citizen downstream. Like, leave my drinking
Yeah.
water
Yeah.
alone, dude.
No, man, I think we want to just say thanks for doing the work you're doing right now with that. That's unbelievable, man, that you're putting your face there out there because it's not easy. I know that people can criticize and you didn't need to do this, but like we said, it's so important, man. It's Alberta's water and I really truly hope that they don't let these mines enter these places and ruin our water.
Yeah, the water's the big thing. There's also, I mean, there's not much of that country left, right? Like civilization has pushed west, and some of the only like, you know, wildlife corridors that are left are that little strip along the foothills, and they're gonna like you don't have to go to Russia or Australia or Africa to figure out what it's going to look like. There's a similar mine just across the border, 100K in the Elk Valley in BC, and their water's messed up, and Montana wants to sue them because they're contaminating their water downstream, and some of the municipalities have had their water wells poisoned, like Fernie and Sparwood have to haul water or had to find new water sources because their groundwater was no good. It's just, and it's for nothing. It's just somebody's making money in the background, and it's not good for Albertans. And there's a lot of people who, they just hear anything that's anti-industry and they just want to attack you, right? So my thing is just to be calm and listen to them and explain that it's not about the parties. I don't care about the parties, but this doesn't make sense. Even if you're a fiscal conservative, it doesn't make sense because there's no money in it. It's going to cost the taxpayer billions of dollars to clean it up. So,
The snake just continues to eat itself, unfortunately. Hey,
yeah, yeah. But anyway, people ask me all kinds of, they're like, can you help us with this cause and that cause? And if the coal thing gets put to bed and there's legislation in place that's ironclad, I'm never touching politics again in my life. I hate it. You asked me if it's affected my career or whatever. And I don't I think it's been a net gain actually, because like when I first decided to speak about it was really scary, honestly, because you never know how people are going to react. And I expected more pushback than I got. I have had some. There's a very small minority of people who are really, really vocal. Like I've had all kinds of threats, and I'm going to come to your house and death threats and shit, mostly on
No
Facebook.
way.
But well, I'm not sure it was death threats, but violent threats for sure. But it's like
Wow.
I talked to the people in the Crow's Nest Pass, and apparently that community is about 50-50 on it. And the people who I work with some people who are against the mines there, and they say that the people who are pro mining in the past are real bullies about it. Like they'll boycott your business or they'll mess up your car or they'll, it's pretty ugly actually. So, but in the big picture, I've lost a few people, but I've gained some. So I think it's been kind of a wash. And I don't care really, frankly. They've pissed me off so much and it's so dirty. Like I know what my grandpa would say about it, and I know what my mom thinks. Like my family is behind me on this, and that's all I really care about.
100%. You're doing the right thing, man. You're doing the right thing. So I think nothing bad will ever come from following your gut and your heart and doing the right thing. And Corb, tell us about everyone that's watching, listening. Where can they see you live? I know you got a bunch of shows coming up. What do we got for the next few months?
Um, it I've been going super hard since COVID lifted in 22, so I'm pretty fried. So I'm staying home for a few months. I can barely see
Nice.
straight. But late March, I'm going to the UK and Ireland with this band called the Dead South, who are huge over there. And then all of April, I'm doing the Eastern US with my old friend Hayes Carl. He's a Texas songwriter. He's one of my best friends, and we're just doing like a two-man song swap bullshit session. It's going to be awesome. It's already sold out pretty much.
huge.
And then a bunch of festivals and rodeos in the summer.
That's amazing. I love how he's like, I'm going to stay for a few months. We're like already in February. You got like a couple weeks, bro. You're going to Europe. Sorry to
Yeah.
tell you. Sorry to break it to you.
What are you doing in
And-
Brazil?
So I'm doing a bunch of I do motivational speaking, right? So I do a bunch of talks here, and then I'm going to Patagonia to do 2 rides. I lead groups in the Andes and take them up the mountains. You're welcome to come if you'd
I want
ever
to come.
like to come one year. Yeah, let's do it next year. I always do it this time of the year, late February. It's epic, man. 6 days in the mountains in a place called Nahuel Huapi, just south of Bariloche. Have you ever been down to Argentina?
I haven't.
Oh, you'll love it, man. The gaucho culture down here, the horse culture, the cattle industry, it's unbelievable. See the Criollo horse, which you know from Chifley's Ride and how strong they are and
Yeah.
versatile. And the mountains, man. The Andes are it's funny because I always tell people that region from Banff to Jasper, where you drive up and you're just like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful place I've seen. You turn another corner, you're like, this is the most, it's just like that. It's funny how far apart they are, like geographically, but the similarities are unbelievable.
Yeah, I've heard Argentina is fantastic.
Yeah,
Good
so let's
beef, huh?
plan it. Oh, amazing beef, grass-fed Angus. Alberta
Lots of
beef
lots
is
of it,
good as
right?
yeah, lots of it. Alberta beef is amazing as well, but that's they come close. It's a close fight, that's for sure. So let's plan it. Let's Cowboy Cole, you next February, you free?
Absolutely.
All
Huh.
right. It's
Are
Argentina,
you do you
boys.
speak Portuguese too?
Yes, sir. I was born down here, right? So I speak Portuguese, and my fiance Clara is from Argentina, so had to learn that. And
So
yeah,
I thought you were Argentinian.
nope, Brazilian.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, don't say that,
So
man. That
yeah, sorry.
hurts. That's like saying you cheer for the Flames.
Yeah, okay, I hear you. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe it's because you're no, that's not what you said about. I don't know. I'm a
It's
scatterbrain, I
be,
guess.
it's probably because of Clara. When we were chatting, Clara was there. We were talking Spanish all the time. I speak more Spanish now
Right.
than Portuguese. Yeah, yes,
Are
sir.
you, which are you more fluent in?
Nowadays, probably Spanish. No, Portuguese. I was born in
Mhm.
Brazil, but I speak to Clara all day
So
in Spanish.
so when did you move to Canada or the
I
North America?
I was 9. I was 9 years old when my parents moved up. They stayed up there till I was 18, and then I moved back
Okay,
with
because
them
you have
for a
zero
year.
accent.
Yeah, the just 9 years old. It's crazy. My sister was 12 and she has an accent. They say like before 10, you don't pick up the accent. After 10, you do. And it's true because my sister was just 12 and she has a thick accent.
Hmm,
But we got to get you
interesting.
down here, man. Got to get you down to the South, play some shows down here. People love you down here.
Yeah. What's that big rodeo in Brazil?
Barretos.
Yeah, I gotta play there. Do bands play there?
Oh, bands play there. Yeah, we had, oh my God, Cody Johnson came down last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was epic, and we've had other international singers, and yeah, it's the Calgary Stampede of Brazil. We got 10 days, over 1 million people, some of the best stock and cowboys in the world, and but it's like the Calgary Stampede on acid, obviously, because we're talking about Latin America, right? So it gets a little crazier.
So tell me this. I've never been able to speak to a native Brazilian about this. Which events are native down there? I know bull riding, right?
So bull riding, it was brought down from the U.S., but so it was influenced by America and Mexico. But the one that's native to us is the bronc riding, which is called cuciano. They ride in a little saddle, and they have 2 sets of rope that's tied like kind of on the horn of the saddle, and then they spur the horses just like they would bareback on their neck, but they're in a saddle. So that's the one that's actually 100% Brazilian, called
Okay.
Cuciano. Yeah, so it's
Huh.
it's cool to see, and they have that in Barretos. They have bareback. They have saddle bronc as well. A lot of the cowboy culture in northern Brazil, it comes from America. Then in
Okay.
southern Brazil, you starting to get into gaucho culture. Southern
Gotcha.
Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina, they have their own ways of riding broncs. They don't ride bulls. They have the paleteada, which is 2 horses pushing the cow together. I don't know if you've ever seen this. The guys ride down, and they push the cow together till the cow turns around. Anyways, they have a bunch of events that's very gaucho derived. It's their own culture.
Is there traditional roping culture in either of those countries?
Yep, long roping. You use it's a 8 meter loop, and you put your coils in the rope. It's made out of leather, and you only rope the animal on top of like the nose, let's say. You just catch the horns. They don't have corns down here, but you just catch that top area, and
Hmm.
you just keep it going. You just ride the horse with them. You don't stop them. Take your loop off and go again. And the guy that doesn't misses wins. So it'll start with like 100 guys. They'll each rope like 300 times till they're down to 2 guys. It's like it's insane, and it takes like all day. And then the guy that doesn't miss, he's the winner.
Wow.
You know, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's
When my dad and my mom rodeoed in Australia in the late '60s, there was no, they don't have a native roping culture there. They use English saddles and no horn, right? And so
exactly no horn.
back in those days, a lot of guys worked all the events. My dad worked all the events when he went down there, and roping was brand new. And he's never been a great roper. He was a bulldogger mostly, but he won a bunch of rodeos roping, and he says that when he would tie the calves, all the Aussies would come around and watch because it was brand new to them.
Wow, that it's funny you say that because remember Cole when we talked to the Lost Cowboy. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He
Yeah,
traveled.
for sure. I
Great
just
guy.
did his
and-
podcast in Vegas.
Oh,
nice.
nice.
That's amazing. And he was telling us exactly that they don't tie off down there. They don't rope a lot because extensions are humongous, right? They're using trucks and helicopters
Yeah.
and that's really cool as well. And that's something that you found, I'm sure, throughout your career. And Cole and I talk about this all the time is that, the horse, the cowboy culture, this Western way of life is a common language. Although it's different, it's still so similar. And there's so many parallels. And you can go anywhere in the world. If you're wearing a cowboy hat and boots, you're going to make friends. And that's really cool.
Hey man, have you heard that Ian Tyson song called La Primera?
No, I have not.
You got to listen to it right after this. It's a masterpiece. It's about the history of the Spanish horses. From the chorus is like the conquistador, Comanche, and the cowboy. I carried them to glory. I'm La Primera, Spanish Mustang. Hear my story. It's amazing.
Oh, what is it called?
La Primera, the first.
La Primera. Oh my God, I'm gonna definitely search this up. Wow.
It's one of my favorite songs ever written. It's a real master. I've been playing it lately, but it's kind of unsung because Ian had so many earlier hits that after a while nobody gave a shit about the later ones. But that's a masterpiece.
All right, we got to listen to it. Corb, I just want to thank you so much, man, for being on the show. You're the best. Cowboy Cole is gonna hit you up with the last question that we always ask, but
Okay.
forever grateful.
Can I
man, forever
apologize
grateful.
first for thinking you're from Argentina?
Hey, I am rattled, man. I'm not gonna sleep tonight.
Sorry, dude.
That's all
Oh,
good,
that's
buddy.
funny. Okay, so our final question we like to ask our guests since this podcast is should have been a cowboy. So we usually ask, what kind of cowboy you would be but since you already are a cowboy, what would you be, Corb, if you were not a cowboy?
Well, it's funny you say that because, I grew up that way and I identify with it, and I've got very deep ancestry and that stuff. But I don't feel like I'm much of a cowboy these days. I mostly sing about it. But if I had to do over, if it's one of those things where if you had 5 lifetimes, I would have. I'm probably too big for it, but I would have liked to try bronc riding when I was young. I rode steers and bulldogged a little bit, but I never had a chance to really try riding bucking horses, other than breaking colts with my grandpa. But
Yeah. Very
That
cool.
is
I'm way
awesome.
too big for that anyway. At NFR, you hang out with the bronc riders, and they're all like here on me, right? So,
Yeah, the Hay brothers.
but yeah, pursuing rodeo would have been fun. My dad and my uncles are all steer wrestlers, so I'm
Very
writing
cool.
I'm writing a bulldogging song. I don't think anybody's written a good steer wrestling song yet.
That is true.
Not
Can you
that I've
can you give
heard.
us can you give us a little something? Do you have any words?
It's too new. I can't even remember how it goes. I have the notes. I have all the notes. I was drunk one night and wrote about a third of it. It's in my notes someplace.
Oh,
You'll
love
be
it.
the
Can't
first
wait.
to. I'll debut it on your podcast.
Yeah, there we go.
Let's go. Can't wait. All right, Corb, thank you so much for being on. Enjoy the rest. You have a couple weeks left, and then enjoy Europe, enjoy the shows in the US, and we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, man, that was really fun chat. Let's keep it tight. When are you back home?
So I'll be back probably mid-March, beginning of April.
Okay, I'll be gone till the end of April, so I'll see you at the end.
Okay,
But
we'll see you then.
we should go for beer, man, just for fun.
Yeah, we have to, man. We have to. I know you're busy. I'm busy, but yeah, let's make it happen when I get back.
Okay, man. See you guys.
Yes, sir.
See
All
you,
right.
Corb.
Thank you so much, brother. Take care.
What a freaking beauty.
What a class act, eh?
Yeah, that man, some of the stories he had.
Right. And it's crazy because we could have done he would have chatted for 3 hours.
Oh, he definitely had the vibe of let's just keep it going, boys.
Yeah. When I said we gotta go, he was like, what? This is over now? Like I thought this was going for 6 hours. Man, I wish I could. I gotta run, otherwise I wouldn't have shut it off. But I gotta drive to a 3 hour away city. So I was like,
Yeah, we
And
don't want to hold
plus-
you up too long.
well, but plus, come on, the listeners, you guys, you don't want to it's tough, right? To listen to a 3 hour podcast, right? We'll do a part 2 of them.
Dude, we got so many part twos we got to do, so it's all good. We'll get him back.
Because he calling me right now.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you, buddy? I was just talking to Cole about that. I'm like, we should have just kept going, but I got to drive to a city 3 hours away. So that's why I was like, I got to go. But man, we could have talked for another 3 hours. Let's do a part 2.
Yeah, well, for sure. Let's go for a beer for real. We talked about it, never got around to it. That'd be really fun.
Yes, sir. That would
You know
be.
what's interesting? What's interesting is like I know
This is so funny. Listeners, Corb called Felipe after.
it's fun to talk to somebody who's been around a little.
No, man, for sure. Let's make it happen, buddy. It'd be a pleasure. You have so many stories. I'd love that.
Where's Cole at?
Cole is he's in Alberta as well. Right now he's in Arizona. He's team roping down there. He's a team roping fiend, so he spends the winter down there, but he's just south of Calgary as well. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, I will. I'll text you his number right after this.
Okay, good talking to you.
All right, buddy. Great talking to you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye. What a great
Dude,
guy.
what?
Like,
That's so funny.
he's a great guy. Every time I meet him, man, it's unbelievable. Like he's just so kind. Like we were talking about, he's playing a 2-hour show. The guy's like sweating his balls off. He's got 30 people around him, and then he makes the time. They're like, "Hey, how are you, Philippe? How are you? How's everything?" Like, yeah, real cool guy.
Yeah, a true professional all around.
Yes,
eh?
sir.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Okay,
All
dude. Well,
right.
we won't keep you from your travels. You got
Thank you,
a
sir.
pretty decent car ride, so we're gonna let you go. Everybody, thanks for stopping in again. Should have been a cowboy. Don't forget, look us up on YouTube, okay, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts, guys. Like and subscribe.
Let's go. And who's coming next?
That's a great question.
Only time shall tell, because we have no idea.
We got some fun guests lined up, guys. So don't go far. Come back, hang with your boys.